All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. I'm super excited for this podcast. I always enjoy sitting down with Zoe Nowicki, hearing her perspectives, trying to figure out what makes her the champion that she is. Right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a company that sponsored my podcast from the very beginning. I'm changing up the intro here a little bit because I just am extremely grateful for a company that has stood by my side from like episode 26. Like I'm approaching 175 episodes and they've been by my side since. So here's what I'm going to say about VetLife. It is a community-driven and mostly funded program that is there to serve the veterans that need help. People, when they transition from one identity to a different identity in life, there's a lot of struggle with that. It's an extremely difficult process. It's if you're thrown off a cruise ship and you're trying to swim, it's a scary experience. Mm-hmm. And if someone's willing to throw you a rope or a raft or swim alongside you or anything, it's just easier to get through. So if you're a veteran that is transitioning from active duty back into civilian life and you're looking for help, look no further than VetLife. It's extremely easy to get a hold of them. I can put you in touch with the owner. You can go to their website, vetlifetoday.org, or if you know somebody that might need help transitioning back into society and, launching their civilian career, please reach out to VetLife or reach out to me and I'll put you in contact. So thank you again, VetLife. Thank you, Josh Parrish, Courtney Parrish, owners, and hopefully it's a great year, 2024. So, Zoe Nowicki, if people live under a rock and they don't know who I'm sitting with and talking to, I want you to just give me, just your highlight reel of who you are, and then let's just start from last year, the lessons you learned, the trials, the ups and the downs, the mental growth. You just got back from Thailand. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just have a fun dialogue here together for anyone that's a fan of you and, to start off your pro chapter.
Yeah, so my name's Zoe, and I grew up doing sports like my whole life, pretty much, from soccer to softball to I was really into horses, still into horses. And then I started wrestling in the 6th grade, and I was really, really bad, but I stuck with it and got better. And then I wrestled through high school and was pretty successful in high school, especially with the women's stuff. I won, our states at the time wasn't official, but I won the states a few times. I made it to boys state. And then my senior year, I won a Folkstyle national championship there. So really on a high going into college. And then I went to college wrestling. I wrestled at Adrian College. I knew the coach. I was comfortable staying in Michigan. I've always been a homebody, so I wasn't ready to travel out at that age. Stayed in Michigan, did super good in college. I had a rough start my freshman year, but then my sophomore year, I won a national championship and I All-Americaned at multiple world team trials. And then my junior year was COVID. Had some of a slump there. I just gained a bunch of weight. It was in a weight class I didn't belong in. I didn't have confidence in myself, I don't think. And then my life kind of changed a lot in that year going into my senior year. I got out of a relationship that I was in all of college, and it wasn't a bad relationship. It wasn't the relationship for me, and I think I got out of that and just gained a lot of confidence in myself, being alone for a little while. And then my senior year, I won the NCAA national championship there, so that was a really good year, and I went 37-1. And then after college, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I took a GA position at a college near Adrian, and that was what I was going to do. I was going to stay in I had a house there. I owned a trailer, a really nice trailer. So it just all worked out. And then I was dating Ty Wildmo, one of the fighters here. And so I was up here a lot more and, just hitting a workout here and there. And I really had control over my body. I got a nutritionist, and for a while when I was done with wrestling, I'm going to be done with wrestling. I'm sick of cutting weight. I don't understand my body. And then when I got that nutritionist going into my senior year, it changed my life. I understood my body, how it worked, how to manipulate it and change it. And so I was I want to stick with wrestling. And I thought about going to Iowa too and continuing wrestling there. But then I decided, why don't I just move up here and try out this MMA thing? I've wanted to do it since I was 16, And I remember in college, I was like, well, I can't do MMA anymore. You know, I'm 5 foot tall and 145 pounds. Like, that's not going to work out. And I'm sick of cutting weight. So getting control over my body was huge. And I've come up here, and then, it kind of leads into what I have going on this year. But
so besides just the victories, because I'll quickly expedite that part of her story, she dominated. She fought 4 people that were world-class in many different ways. A super high-level wrestler, Rana Gross, Rana Heaton Gross, multiple-time world team member. She fought a jiu-jitsu brown belt who's an absolute monster, has submitted professional world champions in competition, has won a ton of jiu-jitsu events, dominated her, fought a girl from Venezuela who's extremely well-rounded, fought a girl who was an undefeated girl for the title. You smashed people in your amateur career. So I'll expedite that part. But let's talk about the mental growth, the personal life, all the things that we normally don't go into about, what it is to be a fighter. Because, on the surface, you were untouchable. But I'm sure there were some peaks and there were some valleys. And last year was probably a tremendous year of growth. And the thing that's shocking about your MMA story is your entire competition time in MMA is like, what, a year and 2 months? A year and a month? Yeah. When did you make your debut for mixed martial arts?
It was October 1st. So it's probably been closer to like a year and a half now if you add up the months. No, not even.
It's only January. So you're at like a year and 3 months from the time you started competing. And for the people that don't know, tell them what just happened with your career.
I just won the Gamma World Championship, which is awesome, but then I just signed my pro contract with Invicta FC.
So in 13 or 14 months from the time you walked to the cage for the first time ever, you're signed as a professional athlete. Before we go to now and your current perspectives, and I just want to dig into like every bit of insight that you can give other people that want to dream, that want to like follow something substantial. Tell me about forget the fights. Tell me, what did last year have in store for you as a woman, as an athlete, as a dream chaser, wherever you want to start? Talk about the ups, talk about the downs, talk about any period. Why are you the woman that sits here today? What growth led to that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've never had that. Like, I have confidence in myself, but I've always thought, I come from a small town. Like, I'm just going to do the best I can do. Like, I've come from a small town. I went to a smaller college, a college that, was really young when I entered it. Like, I'm just going to do the best I can do everywhere. So for some reason, I think I just push myself to this limit that I want to be better, and that propels me along. Like, I can't just sit here and do nothing. I got to do something. And I think me doing something has just led to more confidence, getting smarter, working smarter. I really preach that people are like, well, I'm nervous about this. Yeah, me too. Like, people like treat it like I'm never nervous. Oh, well, you just do everything, because I just do it. And the more I've just done things, like, the more confident I've got. There's so many times now that I look back and think, man, me a year ago, or me entering college or whatever, I never would have done this. I never could have been able to do this, like, without being having so much crippling anxiety. And now I just do things and it's fine. People are like, how do you walk in a wrestling room that you don't know with a bunch of men so confident? I'm like, I've done it so many times. It's just not a big deal. So, but last year and getting through this year, it was rough. Like, my amateur career mentally started out really, really hard. I moved up here. I had a really hard transition into life out of college, and I was still doing sports, but I wasn't a wrestler anymore, and my wrestling has always been my life. I had the best 4 years in college, and so leaving that felt really weird. Am I doing the right thing? Jumping into something that I have no experience with, really. So moved up here. Went through a really hard breakup. Like, my transition into life here was hard. He had some hard things going on. It just clashed. It didn't work out well. We weren't mature enough to handle what was going on, either of us. So there was a rough breakup there, and I was supposed to debut in August, and it happened like a couple weeks before that. So that was really hard, and to deal with, because I was like, why would this happen to me, right before I'm trying to do this? And I just moved here. I have 0 friends. I had people in the gym, but they weren't really my friends, I felt comfortable with them, but I just felt like I had nobody really. And then that fell through, and I'm thankful it did, honestly. I was going to fight at like 135, and that just wasn't the place for me, and I think it just would have felt, I don't want to say it would have felt unfulfilling because it was my debut, but I think it almost would have compared to what came. So we were patient, we waited, and then like a week later or something like that, it couldn't have been that much later, you called me up and was like, oh, do you know who Rana, Gross is? I'm like, yeah, I know who that is. Like, every wrestler knows who that is. So we took that fight, and I remember I was crying in the middle of Sushi Zen because I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm so mentally broken about this breakup. I can't sleep at night. I can't function. And I felt silly because the way I work is like, there's people that go through so many more traumatic things. I'm like, why is this little silly heartbreak just completely destroying me? But it just was. So, and you were like, you need to take this. I think you need to take this fight. Like, you can't just, when something comes at you in life, you can't just be like, oh, but I want to wait till everything's right and everything's good. And that was the best advice you gave me. And that was probably the most grinding I've done was for that debut. I'm going to be honest, I was in such good shape. I dropped to 125, and that was another thing. I'm like, I don't know if I can go through a weight cut like that right now. And I did. I went all the way from 138 down to 125 in 5 weeks or something like that. And healthily, I was grinding. So I won that debut, and I was on top of the world for a long time. I'm like, I can do anything. I can do this. And then soon after that, my ex reached back out, and we kind of got back involved and got in this situation where we weren't really dating. He wasn't ready for that. And it was just kind of a mess. It was all right. It was fine. But it was a lot on my mental because I was back and forth and am I doing the wrong thing? Am I doing the right thing? And I knew deep down I wasn't probably respecting myself the way I should. I wasn't giving myself what I deserve, in that moment. And so I think that was hard on me too, without me even knowing at that time. But I pushed through that. I did. And for some reason I can separate my career and my personal life well somehow, obviously, because I've had such a successful year. But it was this year was some of the darkest times of my life. And I don't think people see that either. And I always wanted to be transparent about that, because I think people see me post successes on social media or whatever, and they're like, oh, she and I talk about how I love my life, and it's yeah, but I still have struggle. I love my life, but there's just struggle that comes with it. So yeah, I was still battling all that, and then I went to my second fight against the girl from Venezuela, and Yanisi, yeah. And that fight camp was, I don't really remember that fight camp so much. It was long. It was a long fight camp. It was a grueling fight camp, just because I think I knew about it 9 weeks out, and that it was just a long time on my mind. But that fight went really well. I won by decision. And then coming right out of that fight, again, my ex and I had this, we had, a fight before that, and we came out of it, and we're we can't really talk anymore. He was this is just too much for, what I want right now, and then that, destroyed me again. It was, going through it again. Not as intense, I saw it coming, and we weren't, really together, but it still broke me because it was, going pretty well. We were friendly and stuff, and so that just kind of rips me apart. But we, stayed talking and stayed, involved with each other, and then I went into my fight with Nakaya, and that was a really fun fight camp. I was training with Danny, every Tuesday and Thursday night, and my confidence in my fighting and my jiu-jitsu and everything, I think, skyrocketed a lot that camp because I knew she was a brown belt. I knew she was good. And I remember going over the fight, and I was supposed to fight some striker, and then she, like, turned pro or backed out or something. And this girl gave an offer, and it was almost like when we were talking about it, you were laughing about it. You're like, haha, like, maybe eventually down the road. And then I was like, no, like, maybe this is it. And you're like, okay, maybe, like, if we train with Danny a lot and we do this and we do all the right things. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we did it. And that fight camp, you know, along with all the mental struggle with that, I just propelled me forward into what was to come. And then it was like March-ish, end of March, because I fought beginning of March. End of March, my ex and I, we didn't, like, talk at all. We, like, cut off all contact, and everything like that. And that was, like, a moment where I really grew, because at that point, I was telling him as well, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, you know, I think we're both just shouldn't talk at all. Like, he was like, I'm not respecting your boundaries. Like, we're just not respecting each other's boundaries, and we just need to not talk at all. And I kind of just, like, hit the ground running. I was like, this is good for me, and I need to lean into being alone and being okay with being alone, because I realized that when we went no contact the first time during my debut and weren't talking at all, I didn't truly, I don't think, get much out of it. Like, I was just sad all the time. Like, I was masking things. I was in therapy and stuff. Like, I go to therapy, but it wasn't enough time between that time and the time we, like, started kind of, like, talking again. And so after that had happened, so it was like, that was March, I went to the US Open. I trained for a month and a half, and that was really healing because I was going down to Adrian a lot to wrestle, and I really leaned in, like, training for wrestling. And I think going back to my college town, like, so, because I just graduated, like, the last May, going back to my college town, hanging out with my friends, like, going to a party every once in a while, you know, just living, like, how I was, like, in college was, like, really healing, and I remembered who I was. And yeah, so I grew a lot from that, and then we went to the US Open, and I was just like, I'm just going to go and wrestle the best I can. Like, if I go 0-2, that's what happens. I just do. And I went there and I completely crushed it. I almost beat the first seed. She beat me like 8-6 or something like that. I just went up there and wrestled. I didn't know who I was wrestling until we stepped on the mat. And I was like, all right, her name's Jennifer Page. She's like in her 30s. I think she just won a world bronze medal. And it was crazy. It was just nuts. And then I went on and got 5th. So I lost again by a point to another girl, got 5th at the Open. And then I was, like, vacationing in Vegas, and then went to vacation for 2 weeks in Phoenix. And it was kind of a solo trip. My cousin lives out there, and I was staying with her, and we did things together. But I was doing a lot on my own. And, like, going hiking and just seeing all these things. And, again, like, really remembering who I was and who I am individually. And that, just doing a lot of work on myself, and that was so healing. So came back from that, and you were setting up a title fight for me. So then I fought Madison Allen for Lights Out Championship and won that. But that was kind of like the first half in recap, yeah.
So this is what I want to do. I don't want to go forward at all because there's too much insight in what you talked about right now.
Yeah.
You dropped a sentence that is so supremely powerful for people that are struggling or people that are considering growth as a trajectory, where you said, I'm just going to do the best that I can do. Mm-hmm. If you embrace that ideology and attack life from the angle of, I'm just going to do the best that I can do. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know that if I do the best that I can do over a sustained period of time, I will develop myself. I will develop not only at the craft that I'm partaking in, but I will develop mentally, physically, socially, and in countless ways that I probably don't even understand yet. I will open doors for myself in this life that don't currently unlock for me if I just show up and do the best that I can do. It's funny, as you said that, I'm going to be off camera, but I was like, because it doesn't have to be that complex. If you looked at life through the lens of, I'm going to show up as me and give the best that I have to the endeavors that I partake in, the success that would come from that is unbelievable. That was like such a powerful, profound statement. Where did you get that, Zoe?
Like I said, I don't really know. I think it's my parents are that way, they don't really half-ass anything. Like they just don't. Like whether it's their work or whatever they're doing, they just do it till it's done or do it until they can't do anymore. So I think that's a lot of it, and it almost sounds so simple it's silly. Like just do the best you can do. Like cuz what's your goal? And like I have goals, I set goals, I write things down, and especially I do it smarter now. I don't just write ridiculous goals and have no plan to get there. But yeah, I've also always I feel like extremely guilty when I don't do things that I know I was capable of. And that guilt actually like kind of eats me alive for a while. So
Where does that come from, Zoe?
I think probably my dad. And I don't know why, because it was never like he was never abusive or anything. I just always felt like if I was disappointing him, like I'm sorry, like the world's over. Like I remember there was still like matches I would lose like in college, like big matches, and I would text my dad who's watching back home and tell him I was sorry. Like why am I sorry for that? I'm not quite sure.
Does he somehow represent like, or maybe set a certain standard that you always wish to achieve, and like not even just to like make him proud, but it's like maybe your father was kind of a standard or made you believe that you were capable of a super high level standard. So when you fall short of that, it weighs heavy on your heart. Do you think there's a correlation to that? If your father didn't really set any standards, didn't really expect much out of you, just said, hey, you're great exactly as you are, do you think you would have that same drive? Am I on the right thread?
Yeah, I think he really pushed me at a young age to like do things. Like I remember he started teaching me lifting when I was a sophomore or junior in high school, and I leaned into lifting. Like I loved lifting. I would, come home from school every day and lift, and if the lift wasn't hard enough at the school's practice, I would lift again, which is silly now, but that I look at it. But yeah, I think I just saw how much he put into me. When my brother and I started wrestling when we were in middle school, he was at every practice. He was wrestling with us. When the big guys needed partners, he was wrestling with the big guys. Like he practiced as much as us when we were in middle school. And so I think that was a great example. And like even now when I run private lessons, I normally practice with the kids. And I think it's part of that. It's like, because when you see someone do it with you, you're supposed to be looking up to, you're looking up to exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And so I think that's probably where it comes from. Like we lifted together. He didn't preach things, and that as far as like athletic goes, he didn't preach things and then not do them. He wasn't like the big coach on the sideline that's like, do this, and it's like, do you even go on a walk? Like that's mean, but it just helped. So
there's another thing that you said that I want to dig a little bit more into, because it was very beautiful and very eloquent the way that you said it. You said, I had to remember who I was. You said, like, when you were really suffering and in dark times and, your brain might have been a mess, you had to just get back to remembering who you were before the chaos. Mm-hmm. What were the things that allowed you to do that? Because if more people could remember who they were before the storm hit, they would realize that, like, they can probably get through it, and there's probably growth that's going to happen in the storm. You don't want it. You don't want to go through those tough times. But I mean, it was on the clip of the podcast that I shared the other day. Like, our darkness introduces us to our strength. Mm-hmm. If only life could just be, people could just lay out a blueprint for what you should do and you'll be successful. Unfortunately, you got to go through the really difficult if you want to get to the really beautiful. That's often the case. What were the things that reminded you who you were? How do you do that? If someone is struggling, how do they get back to the person that they were before the chaos, before the trauma, before the damage?
Yeah, so when I got out of my relationship my junior year, so I was with my boyfriend for my freshman year all the way up into like April of my junior year, so ending out my junior year, I was like confident in myself all of a sudden. was like, I'm alone. Like, I've never been alone. I've never not had a boyfriend. And I just found like a lot of confidence in that, and like having solitude that I'd never had. We like lived in a house together, we lived together. And I think that was just too quick at a young age. But anyway, I found like a new confidence and was hanging out with my friends a lot. And that was something I never really did. I was always, and not because of him, like I'm just a busy person. And the summer was the perfect time for that because I was living alone and able to do whatever I wanted. And then I got back into a relationship with my ex-boyfriend now, I guess, at my senior year. And I found a lot of confidence in that relationship. Like, that was my, first, relationship like that, where I found confidence in a relationship. But anyways, back to when I really found myself around that time when we weren't talking again, I was reminded of that summer almost. I was hanging out with my friends a lot. And like I said, I was training Adrian, so I was down hanging out with those friends. And I think that just helped. That was like, I can be alone. Like, I remember that time when I was alone, and it was great and it was fun. And I wasn't worried about, why doesn't anyone love me? Why am I not enough? I was just having fun with my friends, and I was enough, and there were dark times in that time. Like, I don't like being alone. Like, I'm a person who likes to have connection. So, when I first broke up with my boyfriend my junior year in college, it wasn't like it was easy, but I just found a new confidence in myself. And I think that replicated a lot of that. And I also came to a point where I was like, I am causing my own suffering. Like, this is nothing, like, my ex may be doing things to me that aren't like great or whatever. Not that I'm doing things that are great to him, but we're not doing great things to each other. But I am letting this happen to me, and I am not doing anything about it. I could walk away. Why do I have to stay? I could walk away, and I decided to walk away, and that was like powerful to me, that I let go. Because like I said, that whole time when we were together, and we weren't really together, I'm like, am I really respecting myself? Like, is this what is, is this what I want? Is this okay for me just because I'm comfortable? So
how did you come to those perspectives? Do you think there were certain influences in your life? Was it therapy? Was it inner monologue? Was it, time alone to reflect? Because that's massive. I mean, if you can truly look at the truth in your life and you don't shy away from it, and you know the conversations you need to have and you start having them, because oftentimes if you ask someone what's wrong with their life, they'll give you like a very surface answer. But if you really dug down to know what exactly is wrong with your life, what should you change? What have you been feeling that you haven't really figured out? Why is this feeling repeatedly coming up in my life? Why do I keep experiencing that? And you dig far enough into that, you will come up with your own answers. Like, in a weird way, you're your own savior in a lot of situations, but you have to actually look at things objectively and say, this is what needs to change. This is what I need to say out loud, because whatever problems you're dealing with in your head, I only get what you can articulate to me. Mm-hmm. And if you tell me that the reason you're behaving in a certain manner is because of X, Y, or Z, I have to take that at face value, versus maybe you think that, but if you did more reflection, you might be like, it's because I'm not handling this in my personal life, which is making me feel this way. And then I feel less than. And when I show up to training, I'm not able to give my best. And if I could remedy that, it would change the entire outcome. So it's like, what allowed you to really put things in order, or finally taking action on what you knew needed to be done? Because there's a lot of people that do know. There's people that stay in abusive relationships for years, and they never change it. And they're in a horrible environment that they clearly know is horrible. They know that it's not where they should be, but yet they stay. What made you start putting it together correctly and then take action against it? Do you know like specific details, or was it just a period of time?
I think it was a period of time, but I also remember my therapist, my best friend, whenever I talked about it, it was kind of to a point where it was like, really, this is obvious, like, you know what you need to do. They were always supportive and stuff, but it was almost, I could tell it was like them throwing their hands up, like, what are you not seeing? I think that was part of it. And like, honestly, social media, like, I find a lot of, it gets overwhelming at times, and that's when I have to like take a break. But I follow like a lot of growth pages and stuff. So like when you see those things just like spit out at you, and like, just information and education like that, it's like, okay. And you're not the only one going through it either. You're like, this is easy, So I think go ahead.
I think you just made a really big point there, though, that I don't want to skip over. You chose to bring in good information in your mind. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in strife like that and you're in conflict like that, that's where being a victim or falling into a bitter, resentful, angry, why me mentality really consumes people. If you don't pursue the right avenues, you can end up way deeper in much darker places. And you might even make your situation substantially worse. You made it a point to choose positive things. Why?
I think because I just want to learn, too. Like, I just do want to be better. Like I said, I want to be the best that I can be in my life. So it's like, why do I sit in this dark path and just become worse? Because that's going to make me feel worse. And I think that's what propelled me forward that whole year was like, okay, if I just sit and sulk in this sadness, I'm just going to get depressed. And then I'm not going to fight. And then I'm not going to win fights. And then I'm not going to be winning at anything in my life. And so it's like, well, I have to do something. And obviously education is going to push you to.
You have a foundational belief, though, that you're worth something, that you should make yourself into something in this life, and that, you have a trajectory to aim at. Mm-hmm. You really do. You have like a core foundation in you that might have been instilled by your parents or might, come from you as well, where you're like, I'm supposed to get to happiness. Like, I'm supposed to get to a person of value. I'm supposed to do great things in this life. So even when you start to sink, it's like, if you know that land is over there and you're over here, you at least have a target to go at versus being like, well, I guess this is my life now. I guess this is who I am now. It's like you always have that pillar that has kept you from sinking too low because you do bounce back really well. Yeah, I deal with a lot of people. You bounce back very well.
Yeah. I don't know what it is either because I'm not the type of person that goes through something and then I just forget about it. Like I get anxious about things. Like I overthink things. I can be a highly anxious person about that type of stuff. Like I think a lot of people think, oh, she's just able to put it out of her mind. And no, it's normally there, but I'm just still doing what I need to be doing. So, yeah.
So any other lessons from last year before we talk about Thailand? Because I want you to go into that experience. I think it was so incredible. I think it's probably changed your mind forever. It'll change the way you look at combat. I mean, in the United States now, you're signed to a professional organization that's going to fly you out, give you a beautiful hotel room, take care of your trip. You're going to get media, interview, and you're going to compete against one girl and get paid well to do so. In Thailand, you fought multiple people in a 2-day period, 3 women in 2 days for the glory of it, simply to show up and represent yourself, your team, the United States. I can't tell you how valuable I believe that experience was for you guys, and I hope to take all of our high-level amateurs or even starting pros, if it makes sense for them over there, because like you're going to come back a different person. Mm-hmm. You're not coming back the person that left for it. But if there's anything else from last year, from your personal life, from where your relationships have gone now because of the healing you've gone through, to advice that, I see you train young kids out there. I see even the kids you don't train, you're training. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is like, you have no idea how many young kids are looking at you and going like, that's kind of the gold standard of what I'm working towards. Like the little girls, like little Lucille and many other kids, the Ortiz kids, they look at you and go like, okay, you know what you're doing? You are creating a target for them to aim at. They're going, wow, that is someone substantial. That is a powerful person. She radiates things that I want to become. Mm-hmm. And you're going to maybe give them the trajectory so that when life tries to pull them down, and it will, they can go, I have an aim. I know what I'm trying to do. Zoe's suffered, but she's bounced back. Maybe I can bounce back too. So just anything else from this last year, good or bad, insights, anything in general that you think you'd love to capture in this moment in time on a podcast. Because even if I took this Zoe, if we could jump in a time machine, I always love this about life. If we could pull you back to your darkest moments, if we could take this Zoe to Sushi Zen when you were in tears and say, listen, it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
And don't ever forget that during the hard times. Like the people that listen to these episodes at home, you're going to go through hell several times in your life. Some people more than others. But if you learn lessons correctly, those hell periods will make your life better.
Yeah, and I think my mom was like, gosh, my savior through this past year, honestly. And she always says, like, sometimes it's the most frustrating thing because she's like, it is what it is and it's going to be better and you're going to take it moment by moment. And I'm like, no, I want a different answer. But she's so right. Like, every time she says it, and I think that was healing too, like, because she would say it to me every time. She'd be like, you got to take life moment by moment. And she's like, my therapist always told me take it day by day, but you got to take it hour by hour sometime. And I was like, yeah. And then that's how it was some days. It was hour by hour. So, that's probably a good little snippet.
No,
take it hour by hour.
I love it. And my favorite saying, you know me, is it is what it is.
Yep.
Because it's just,
too.
it's the truth. And you don't get to bend the world the way that you want it to be in all circumstances. We're not the divine arbiter here, okay? You have to deal with the cards that you are dealt and do the best you can. Just do the best that you can do. Because it is what it is. I might make that into a shirt and Zoe Nowicki it. Just do the best that you can do.
Yeah.
Right? Let's talk about Thailand.
Okay.
Let's talk about from the moment I first presented the idea to the fact that you got to go with your squad and your significant other. Like, it was such an incredible experience that I don't think no matter what her and I say, it will really capture the essence of what that trip was. But I'm sure, like I said, you're a different person now from having gone through it. Break down that Thailand experience, and then let's talk about, like, current, where you're at with life afterwards.
Yeah, so Thailand was amazing. I remember I was in Saudi for Gamma, and that was kind of just a whole cluster, whatever. And it was a good experience, but it was just, kind of just ended up crazy. And I remember before I even competed, you said something and then Justin said something or vice versa, but about the championships being in Bangkok. It was you. We were getting ready to get on the plane and you were like, if you do really good here, like, you'll get invited to Bangkok. And I was like, Bangkok, Thailand? For the, like, some world championships. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, I was just going to come here and it was a pancreation. So I'm like, I was just planning on doing whatever. I'm like, but now I really want to win. Like, I really need to win. So even before I didn't win, but even before we left, Justin pretty much said that everyone that medaled was, like, kind of guaranteed a spot on the roster. So I was like, heck yeah. And then you had, like, brought up Ty going, and that's insane. Like, Ty has always wanted to go to Thailand. I've wanted to go for a long time, and his dream on his bucket list is to, like, fight in Thailand. So when that was in the works, it was just crazy. I didn't even really think it was going to happen. And then you said, like, we had to fund it ourselves. And I was like, oh, no, but we're going to make this happen. And we did. So do you want me to just go right into
everything?
Okay.
Just keep going. You're on a roll.
So we booked our flights or whatever, and then it was like a 20-hour flight. So we get there, and we're under the impression that there's hydrated weight testing. Probably not going to happen. We don't know if it's going to happen. Probably not. And you have to weigh in 2 days. You have to weigh in, and then there was a day between competition. You compete the next day. You weigh in the next morning. So that's what we did. Like, we made weight, and we got there, and we're like, oh, so there is hydrated weight testing. So we're kind of like, oh, we have to, work around this. And like 4 out of the 10 Americans got picked or something. And I didn't get picked. So that's good because that thing's just hard to pass. It doesn't matter how hydrated you are. That test is just really, really hard to pass.
The fact that we got Fallon to pass that test is unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Yeah.
I mean, with as much as she cut. Think about how much she cut. And she had to cut 4 times. Did she do her weight cut?
3 or 4, yeah. And just the first time. I think it was 3 the first time. Yeah, it was 3.
We had to plan the timing so perfect and all kind of craziness. And going through weight cuts like that brutally in such a short period. I mean, like, not to trash anything of Gamma. The experience was incredible. And I would love to be back. And I want to take Team USA to another level. I want to be a huge supporter of Gamma because I've seen the potential. But, like, we better get our information together right. Not being able to tell athletes, like, oh, no, it's not 2 weigh-ins. It's no matter what, you will weigh in every morning if you're going to compete, period. Some of you will have to pass hydration tests and all of the other things that we should have known in advance. But we can improve that as an organization at the end of the day. And also...
Yeah, and since we've been there, too.
And maybe you should tell people that every other country is only sending absolute savages, top-level pro athletes. It's not just like, oh, amateurs or pros can go. Yeah, to die on the battlefield. Like, there was some people with 25, 30 pro fights that were pro champions for several years that were competing against, like, Ezekiel, bless his heart, as a 1-1 amateur, fought like a 2-time national champion, absolute monster guy from Lebanon in his opening round. It's like the level over there. But a lot of people might be like, well, I haven't heard of Gamma, so the level must be low.
It's big in other countries, though. Like, Gamma USA is growing here, but that's what they do in other countries. Like, there was people from Pancration who did the Gamma thing for Pancration, and they were the same people over there. So they just travel wherever Gamma's going, I'm going.
And their teams were so well put together and organized and all pro fighters, and they knew their role. And some of them fought up to 6 times in 4 days because they did the MMA striking and the MMA. There's no money on the line here. There's no...
They're pros. They've got money before.
They're fighting 6 pro fights for the glory of it. And that's a different mindset. That's not, I want to be a fighter because it's cool. I want to get paid. I want to be on television. No, those people are over there to be like, I'm a badass and I'm going to show the world. So it's like, that experience was incredible. So let's go into just, we land in Thailand, forget all the little issues with information or, pull the juice out of that experience.
Yeah, so I fought. Well, I woke up the first morning of competition, found out I wasn't fighting, and I was pissed. I was like, okay, I was ready to compete, and now I'm not, and I have to make weight again before I even get to compete. Okay. But it was fine. It worked out, whatever. We made weight again. And then I fought my first fighter, and I didn't know who she was. I knew she was a girl from China, so I assumed she'd be good because China brought, like, the most people, and they're China. So went out there, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to do the best I can do, and I ended up beating her. Like, I think it was split decision, but it felt pretty sound. There was some judging discrepancies, and that was awesome because...
I'm going to put it on the mic. I'm sorry. The only judging discrepancies I saw at the entire event was only Chinese judges.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be rude right now because, listen, I would never want my people to win in a way that was unfair. If we had gone over there and got like an unfair decision win over someone from China, I would be pissed. The better athlete that won the fight should be awarded for the victory. In Saudi Arabia, it was clear as day to everyone that watched your match against the gold medalist that you won that match. No one would watch that back and not see that you wouldn't have won that match. But, I mean, I wasn't horrifically flagrant. I'm not saying that, but you clearly won. And with that Chinese judging, it really bothered me. So, Gamma, another thing is, if you're going to be a world-class organization, you have to make sure that there is no bias and no, or as little as humanly possible. If 2 judges clearly know that all the rounds went to one person and the other judge has 2 of the rounds for the other person, you need to look into that and say, what's going on here? So I want to do a quick coach's input before you jump because you're about to go to your next fight. I looked at your bracket, and I was going through all the people, and I was like, okay, I feel really good about this matchup. I feel great if she fights this girl from Czechoslovakia. I feel awesome if she fights this person. Ooh, this fight's really tough. And in my mind, I was like, the by far toughest fight we have on this entire roster is this one Chinese girl. I was like, she's been a pro for 9 years. She fought Zhang Wei Li last, the UFC world champion. And that was when she was just a young girl, just getting into martial arts. So she has been a pro since you were a teenager considering, let me try some MMA. We draw her in the opening round.
Of course. Because I didn't know anything. I'm the type of person that's like, I didn't really want to look at my bracket. I didn't know who I was I did, but I didn't look anyone up. I don't do that. But
so I literally say to Ty, for you, I'm just trying to keep your head on right backstage. I know what girl you're fighting. And I'm saying, oh, maybe it's that girl, maybe it's that girl. And I'm trying to judge your mannerisms. I'm trying to see, are you overly nervous? Do I need to push you a little bit harder in warm up? I'm trying to read you like a coach should, right? And Ty's sitting next to me, and I go, see that girl right there? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's the girl she's fighting. And he's like, God damn. I'm like, you're not fucking wrong. Like, the girl was so sharp. Watching her on the mitts, she looked like, her timing, her rhythm, her patterns, her speed. I was like,
No, she was like there was a few Chinese girls back there warming up because I didn't know at all because they were all kind of like relatively the same size, and I was like, well, she's really good.
and for the people that don't know, she also fought MMA striking. She won the gold. Like, she was incredible of a striker, and I'm like, good Lord, Zoe Nowicki, I'm going to put this out there, gets the hardest bracket draws of anyone I've ever met. Whether it's a wrestling, whether it's Saudi Arabia, you fought the gold medalist in your first round. We go to Thailand, you fight the MMA striking gold. If not for you, that girl would have won the division. She would have double golded that weekend. New York, no matter what, I swear, you only get the toughest brackets in the world. But anyway, you go out there. When you beat her, no joke, I was like, we got this in the bag, baby. Like, I knew the other fights were going to be tough because stylistically, the girls actually gave you more trouble. The other girls. Yeah. Like, I think the girl from Italy and Greece, stylistically, are more difficult, but they were not nearly the... they weren't as sharp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. They weren't as seasoned. They didn't have as much, of a legitimate threat in one area of the game. It was more like they're kind of similar to you in build and stature and style, so it might present problems. Let's continue through the tournament. So you fought twice on the first day, right?
Yes, and then I fought that Italy girl. So after that first fight, you told me who she was, and I was like, whoa, like I'm way more capable of this than I think. Especially because I knew that was a hard fight. Like, I got out of there, I'm like, that's got to be one of my hardest fights. And I was just confident after that moment that I'm going to win this. I want to win this. And every time I've ever done that at a big event, I win. Like, anytime, that's what happened to me my sophomore year in college when I won the national championship. I remember looking at my coach, Dominic Adams, he was the assistant coach, and I was like, I'm going to win this tournament. And he's like, he kind of looked at me like sideways. He's like, hell yeah, you are, Zoe. And I was like, I am. And I did. Anyway, so then I went into my second fight, and I knew who I was fighting. I had watched her fight, and I thought it was going to be, like, harder stylistically. Like you said, she was more of a grappler. She wrestled her girl. But then I have this mindset, like, okay, if you're going to try and wrestle me, for some reason I have this chip on my shoulder about wrestling and MMA, and I'm like, I'm just going to out-wrestle you. So, that's kind of what happened. That was probably the most fun fight because I remember I've only finished Madison with that armbar. I've never really come close to finishing anyone else, especially on the feet. And I remember it was the second or third round, and we'd been beating each other up. Her face was all getting big and black and blue, and I would hit like a 2-3-2 or something like that, and I could just see the rocking back, and I'm like, oh my god! And I wish I would have followed up, but that was fun. So. Even more confidence, after that one, I was like, wow, I dominated that girl again. And then the finals was the next day. So made weight again for the third day. And we didn't know we were weighing in the third day like this whole time until like that morning, I think. And we had to weigh in again. And then the finals match came. And I was pretty nervous that whole day. The production was amazing. Like, they had a huge opening ceremony. It was all on one ring, one cage. So, the pressure's on. And I just had to tell myself, like, I've been here before. I have won a national championship. Like, I've been here a million times. And that's where a lot of my success comes from, too, is I just tell myself, you've been here before. You've been bigger places in your head than what this is. So I went out there, and I could tell she wanted to rip my head off. Like, backstage, like, she was the most intense out of all my opponents as far as wanting to murder me in the cage. So I'm like, this is gonna be a battle. And then I ended up, wrestling her, and like even stood on the feet a lot too, and dominating that fight.
It was actually your most dominant performance. You completely dominated her.
Yeah.
I mean, you let your hands go way more in the first one, in the second one. And the first one, you looked really good in all your skills. But, like, the girl could do nothing about the intensity and wrestling pressure that you brought to the ring. I mean, most of the fight was her stuck on the bottom, desperately trying to explode out.
And I knew she was going to try and explode on the feet, so that's kind of why I did that. I was like, she's built a lot like me, like, I really hadn't been clocked hard in a fight before that weekend, so I'm like, I don't know, like, exactly how much I can take before that's enough, but Yeah.
Yeah, and that girl looked incredible too. Like, and she was a sweetheart. But like, I'm telling you what, if you judge her on stature and presence backstage and stuff, she looked like a stone cold killer. Like, I was like, okay, this girl is gonna be legit.
And I watched her warm up the whole tournament, and she always warmed up like good and hard, but she was like different. Like, I could tell she was different heading into that fight, that she wanted to win. So
100%. I think that girl, if she stays focused and stuff, you'll see her at the top. She, like, if she gets it here, I think you're going to see her in the UFC too. She just has a certain presence. She has the physical gifts. You know, as long as she can get her mental right, I think that girl's going to be really high level. I want to point out something in your story. When you were prepping for Nakia Jackson, you went through super difficult rounds with Danny. You had your confidence going in against Nakia. You were getting ready to go to this, or when you said you had that moment with your coach, you had broke through that first match. You had a super difficult moment. You knew you could be successful. You had that fight against the girl from China, probably the number 1 seed in the division. Once you got her, through her, you knew you could make it. The reason I'm reiterating this is people need to remember to look at things that way. What the progress you are seeking is probably found in the place you least want to be. Like the environment and the stress that you don't want to endure is probably the breakthrough that will yield the person you do want to be.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Even when I started doing clinics in like privates with kids for wrestling, I don't really remember my first ones exactly, but I remember like the anxiety I got. Like, I can't do this. I don't know. Like, my school was not as technique based as it is more like grinding and fundamentals. Like, I don't do anything fancy. I'm just really good at the fundamentals. And so I was like, well, I don't have anything to teach these kids. Like, I'm not good enough for this. And, you know, I just kept doing it. I kept very, you know, every week I was nervous to show up for privates. I was nervous to show up for clinics. I didn't want to do it. Like, they're not going to like me, but I kept doing it. You know, I kept being like, well, this is going to be uncomfortable. This is going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to get better. And it has.
I'm just going to do the best that I can do. And then, you know what? You're proving to yourself over and over that your anxiety and those fears are liars. You are proving to your brain it's not that is reality. I am not actually limited in the way that I think. I have value, and I can learn to be confident in this environment or setting. But I have to go through these feelings that I really don't like to end up at that point.
And you just have to accept you're probably not going to be good at it right away. Like, I look at the way I ran privates and practices before, and I was like, man, I was going really fast and just expecting those kids to know what I was talking about. And now, like, I lay it out and, you know, I do it a different way. And you're just not going to be good at it. You're just not. Like, I know you want to be. I do too. I'm that way. I don't really want to start something I'm not good at, but I know I need to.
So I'm telling you, if you listen to this podcast, this young woman is dropping countless gold nuggets for how to put your life and mind in order. Another thing that I love is when you just said, like, I've been here before. That's another great thing to keep in your mind. If you can put yourself through stress on a regular basis, when you're in stress, your brain will know, I have been in stress before. This situation is super difficult. I've been in difficult situations before. People always want to know from high-level people that are successful, high-level athletes, where do you gain your confidence from? The confidence comes from the difficult. The confidence comes from the darkness. My ability to walk on a stage and speak to 5,000 people unscripted for 45 minutes, which I've done, comes from the fact that I've done it before. I've gone in front of a complete group of strangers to speak on a topic and believed that I was worthy of doing that. And when you get through it, you go, I knew I could do it, you know, and then it empowers you further. And maybe sometimes the voice of I knew I can do it is only whispering. Maybe it's just the tiniest, like, maybe I can make this work. But when you do it more and more, it gets louder and prouder. And when someone offers you an opportunity and says, do you think you can take on this endeavor? That voice goes, yeah, I can do it. You know what I mean? And then a lot of people that don't have that, they'll view that and be like, wow, blah, blah, blah. You think no, I've proven to myself over a sustained period of time that I am the person that I believe myself to be. And if you would do more things that were difficult or that are in the direction of your goals and face what comes along with that, you will adopt the same type of belief system. So it's like you're healing or your confidence, competence, all of the things that you're seeking is going to come from the places you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Focus on that.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, we had to do a requirement where it was either you took creative writing or you took public speaking, and I hate writing. I've always hated writing. I entered a degree in college where I didn't have to write papers, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that. Like, I'm not creative and I don't like writing. So I did public speaking, and my mom kind of made me. My mom never really made me do anything because she didn't have to. Like, I was just instilled in me at a young age, like, you don't quit, you finish what you're doing. She never really had to make me do anything. And she's like, you're going to do public speaking. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And she's like, you're going to do public speaking, at least for a semester. You don't have to do both of them. And I did both semesters. I was terrified my first semester. Every time I went up there, I wanted to cry. And then by my second semester, I was one of the best speakers in the class. And then I went to college and had to have basically the same public speaking class, and I didn't even, like, it didn't even matter. I just went up there and half the time didn't even do the project I was supposed to be doing. I just started speaking. So, and that's why people, like, talk about, like, my interviewing gets better and better too. And it's like, well, because I just do it.
I mean, right now you're sitting here beautifully describing a lot of extremely complex topics off the top of your head. This isn't scripted. For the people that know this podcast, this is you and I sat down, we grabbed a drink, we had just got done with training, and we're like, hey, let's have this conversation. But it's because your brain, once you know you can handle a stress, the fight or flight stops screaming so loud. That's what it is when you go into a new experience, or if you haven't prepared yourself properly by slowly taking on stages of what that experience is going to be like. 'Cause sometimes maybe you can't go from I am not a public speaker to walking on a stage with thousands of people and speaking. But you can break it into stages to the point where your brain goes like, yeah, maybe I feel the feeling a little bit, and maybe that'll never go away. But you'll get through it, and you can do it.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what we need to teach children. This is the simple things we need to go back to. You're crippled with anxiety? Well, what are the things that you're voluntarily doing that forces a fraction of that feeling that you overcome on a regular basis to prove to yourself you're more than that voice? You're more than that feeling. Oh, nothing? Oh, someone told you to run away from that feeling? Well, you're making yourself weaker. The world doesn't get easier as you get older. You have to get stronger. Otherwise, I mean, you want to wake up one day at 30 and you've never taken on any of the challenges or goals or dreams or anything in your life and then get started? Or do you want to go, damn, this makes me so uncomfortable. Mom, I'm not a public speaker. But the other thing to keep in mind is you don't know the doors that you're unlocking. Now you're a professional athlete. Guess what professional athletes have to be able to do? Speak and brand themselves and be able to articulate things to people that are influenced by them and just a plethora of things. Thank God you took that class.
I would not be where I am now without that class. I would still be so nervous to talk. I just know I would. You know, I wouldn't be half the speaker I am and confident in what I'm saying. So
let's bring it up to where we are now. You got back from Thailand. We got on a conference call with Shannon Knapp, president of Invicta FC. She offered you a contract. You are now, Zoe. It's signed. It's turned in. You are a signed professional mixed martial artist, an athlete. What is that like? Has anything changed? So many people on the outside, I think, put people on a pedestal too much. This is how I'm going to describe this. They look up to professional athletes, celebrities, musicians, whatever it is, and they build a story in their brain of who that person is. And what they do is they separate that person from being a normal human being. They don't look at all the shortcomings. They don't look at all the failures that led to that point. They don't look at all of the things that make them just like themselves. They pedestal them. And what that does is disempowers themselves. But when you're the actual one, I always like joke with people, like, what's the difference between an amateur fight and a pro fight? And people are like, what? Paperwork.
Yeah.
There's no difference. You are the person you are. Now, your success will be determined based on how prepared you are for the professional ranks. But so many people, they can't unlock the belief within themselves that they're closer to their goals, ideals, idols than what they could ever imagine. You're closer to being those people than you are to not being those people, because they're just people. They've developed better habits than you. They dream more than you. They've built more confidence. They've endured more darkness than you, most likely, or have pulled the appropriate lessons.
Yeah.
Because victims get victimized constantly by life. If you are not learning your lessons correctly and you are not turning darkness into strength, you're going to probably live in darkness because it's there to teach you the lessons that are necessary. If you're naive, you fall into situations to be taken advantage of again and again and again and again and again. And you might think, what is this life doing to me? This isn't fair. Life's not fair, but it's doing it to you because you haven't learned the lessons necessary to speak up for yourself, to change your environment, to get away from whatever's causing the chaos, whatever it is. You're a professional athlete now. What is life like? What has changed? What is it like prepping for this next moment? What would you say to your younger self? Just open dialogue, Zoe.
Yeah, so I'm super excited that I signed my pro contract. I think that's awesome. I personally think I've always trained like a pro. So I'm sure that I'm just speaking on this now because I don't even have a date booked and nothing, it hasn't even been that long, but it doesn't really it feels awesome to be able to recognize and tell myself that I'm a professional athlete, but nothing really feels different, and I don't want it to. I just want to go fight. That's really what I want to do, and it's cool now that I get paid because I do this a lot. I do it a lot, and I deserve to finally. But yeah, that's really I'm very excited. I'm excited about the media and the easier branding, that I'll get. And I think I'm just ready for this moment. I do that. The confidence from Thailand and just the experience of being in that country and the confidence that just comes from traveling, I think has really prepared me for this moment. And I'm excited to have my break and jump into it.
And to be honest, you're basically a 3-0 professional fighter. I mean, I know you're not.
And I think that helps.
But think about that. You fought 3 professional women in full MMA fights. Now, they weren't 5-minute rounds. They were 3. But I don't think it would have changed the outcome. You're supremely conditioned, and you were winning the fights. It's not like the very end you were hanging on for dear life. No. You've basically got to have a chance to fight against 3 professionals just as an experience. And now you get to come back and actually have your professional debut. I think that's going to help tremendously. I think that probably lets you go into the Invicta cage with a different mindset than had we not gone to Thailand. Imagine if Madison Allen was your final fight before you were walking into the Invicta cage versus you coming back off.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so much more experience. That was what was awesome about Gammas. It was 3 full, they were amateur fights. They were only 3 rounds, but 3 full fights that I got. That experience was worth so much. So, yeah, and I think another thing that really prepares me for this moment is I truly, to a detriment sometimes because I deal with bad imposter syndrome, don't think I'm better than anyone else. Even when I was going against Madison, I was like, well, I might be better skill-wise, but this girl wants to get in the cage and fight me, and I don't really know her skills. Maybe her skills are better, but if they aren't, there's something in her that is I want to hurt this girl. So, you can't just walk in there and be like, oh, I'm going to beat their ass. Maybe they're crazy. But, yeah, I think that makes me really ready for this moment, too, because I still don't look at myself and think I'm any different than what I was. My confidence is better. The good things are better, but I don't think my skills are better. I've been practicing. But I don't think I'm just better than everyone else. I think everyone's at different stages in life. And that's what I try to tell people, because I think sometimes I don't realize it. And then other times I do, people talk to me or they don't tell me things because it's oh, well, I'm not who she is. And I wish they did, because you are. This past year I had so much struggle and honestly, really disrespected myself in ways and made myself feel stupid and what am I doing? Strong people don't do this. Strong people can just walk away. And it's not that easy,
You just said another literal genius bit of insight where if someone could plot out our human timelines from the moment you were born until where you are right now, I bet you somewhere along your timeline, you were almost identical to most, like whoever's viewing you and thinking, oh my God, this person's incredible. They're so this, that, and the other thing. I'm broken. I can't do this, that, or the other thing. On a certain period of your timeline, you were probably just like that. You were struggling with self-doubt. You self-sabotaged. You made bad decisions. You did this, that. You're human, just like they're human. And if more people realize you are not who you were at your worst moment, you are the product that has come out of life thus far. You are the person that has endured through countless mistakes, ups, downs. Sometimes you don't do anything wrong and the world can just abuse you. Sometimes you can literally just fall into horrific situations around horrific people and terrible things can take place. That does not diminish the value that you inherently have for the world unless you allow it to get into your psychology like a poison. And then it can convince you that that's who you are. It goes back to your original statement. I needed to remember who I was. People need to, you need to listen to those words. And the crazy thing about life, too, is you only hear to your current frequency. As you level up in life, you could hear the same sentence at 15, 18, 20, 25, and 30, and it could hit you completely different. You just got to trust the process. You got to believe that there is good in the world, and it's worth seeking. And you got to keep going because almost all the strongest people I know have gone through tremendous darkness and struggle, or they have done things so outside of their character. And you want to know the reason they feel horrific about those moments is because it's so far from who they are. And that was the universe being like, that is not your path. You stepped way off into the darkness, and you know what? Maybe you needed to, because it tells you this is what you're capable of doing. This is what your life could look like. These are the terrible behaviors you could partake in, but that's not you. Get back on track. Be the person you know you're meant to be. And you know what? You're stronger for having gone through it, and you're a better person.
Yeah, that dark time of my life was really needed now that I look back on it. Like, I really needed to just be alone and feel lonely. I never really have. I don't like feeling lonely, I discovered, and I never really got to feel that fully because I was like always in a relationship or something like that. And then I knew I was truly alone like a lot of the time. I didn't even really I developed friends quickly, like through the gym and stuff, but I didn't even really have friends out here at first. And it's easy to say now that I'm in a better place because I'm back in a relationship with that man with Ty, and it's going really well, and it's really, really healthy. So that might be easy for me to say now, but it truly helped me grow to be more confident in me, and I still have my moments, but to be confident in who I am and to know that I'm gonna be okay with myself, and I know that there's people around me that love me because of who I am and who I'm trying to be. So yeah, I'm very happy to say that I'm in a good spot mentally now with my relationships and working really hard at them. But it wasn't easy, and I did hit a pretty low point for a minute.
Did you see the quote that I posted just a couple days ago where I post it every year. I found the picture of this thing, I think, 9 years ago, and every year I try to post it, where it's a kid spray painting out one word in a sentence. And what it says, be with someone who makes you happy. And the kid is spray painting out the with, and it says, be someone that makes you happy. And it's like, if you can ever pull the essence of what that is saying and just focus on being the best version of you possible. If the relationship is meant to work, it can work. And it's going to be work. If you don't think relationships are work, you're in for tons of disappointment. But if you can be happy truly with the person that you are and give your best to the people in your life, it is most likely to work out in your favor. And if it doesn't work, you will be okay.
Yeah.
That is the key element. Because listen, no matter what you put in, it still might not work out. And that haunts people. The idea of that torments the human mind. That what if I do everything perfectly right and then they still won't love me and leave? Then it is what it is.
Yeah, and that still haunts me too. That I'm still human just because all of a sudden now I'm back, in this relationship and in a good relationship where we're working hard at it doesn't mean that I don't have down moments. And I think that's really something that I like always want to voice to people, because sometimes I'll look at my own social media and be like, have I spit out like words of wisdom lately, or have I just been talking about my success? Because I don't want people to sit here and think that I'm on this pedestal, because I don't feel that way until someone might say like something to me, and I'm like, that's how people think of me? Like, I promise I'm just normal. I mean,
no, you're
normal's
not.
relative, but
Pause. I'm not cutting that out of the episode. She is not normal, because if the normal was characteristics like Zoe Nowicki in this world, the world would be a completely different place. If your behavior and patterns of thought and accountability and responsibility and work ethic and just do the best that I can do, if that was the norm, Zoe, this world would look drastically different. The norm in this world, I mean, most people are very broken. And that's why they're inspired by people like you. The reason you stand out is because you are not normal. You're just relating to, but I'm just a girl that's trying to make my way through this world and do things that matter to me at the best of my ability. That's still not the norm. You know what I mean? But I love that you're empowering others. What you're saying through those words is you're saying, you can do it too. It's not me that allows me to be successful. It's the behaviors, the thoughts, the patterns, the way that I've put my life and mind in order that has allowed me to be successful. And that's just a process, system, mindset, ideology, whatever you'd like to call it. And if you can adopt that or move in the direction of that, your life can improve as well. I love that you're messaging that, because mental health is, I mean, the kids need it. The next generation needs it. Yeah. Everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Everybody needs it. If you're not in a good place mentally, I don't care if you're surrounded by riches and people and everything that you think you want, you will live in a prison cell. And like, you got to let yourself out. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to do the work, no one can save you. And
I think having humility there is huge. You know, I don't like being wrong. No one likes being wrong. But I can, accept coaching, and I can accept criticism pretty well. And I can identify that even if I get defensive about it, eventually that wasn't the right thing to do. I shouldn't have done that way. And I think a lot of people get to this point where maybe they're successful and they're arrogant. They're like, well, I can do anything. And it's not like the girl bagging your groceries at the grocery store doesn't care that you're a UFC world champ. She doesn't care. So
one thing I've had to get better at as a coach that I think I've made tremendous progress on in the last couple of years that I was not good at when I was younger. I was a very people-pleasing person when I was younger. I did everything I could to inspire everyone around me, to try to lift them up to the highest standards, and I did not give them enough tough love. I was too stuck in compassion, pouring belief into people, loving them for exactly how they were, and like letting them make whatever choice they want to make, no matter, like, it's their choice to make it, even if I know objectively it's going to cause them chaos. And I thought that the way you love someone was you just pour everything into them and say, go conquer with that. What I realized is a role as a leader or a coach is to also embrace tough love. Tough love is probably at times the most important form of love. To be able to look at someone that you care about deeply, that is doing the wrong thing for sure, that like everybody around them knows it, because everybody has an opinion. You'd be like, oh, well, what makes you think you know what's best? A lot of people would take that viewpoint. If someone's doing drugs or skipping their training as a professional athlete or all these different things, or that was an extreme to different examples, it's clear. Yeah. These are not wishy-washy things. And getting better at telling people that, like, no, you need to play your part in this, or take responsibility for that, or your actions are negatively affecting your performance and the world around you. Yeah, you're high level. You know how fast that can come, crashing down? And I tell you what, you can climb to peaks in life and be on top of the world, and guess what? The fall down the mountain is still going to be brutal. And what you once did will be a remnant of the past, and you will be living in the current valley. So as a coach, I think what I've gotten a lot better at is realizing, like, if I really care about someone, I have to tell them what's uncomfortable at times. I have to, even if they get angry at me, even if they hate me for a short period. Oh my God, I can't believe he's saying this, that, or the other thing to me. I'm already awesome. I'm like, you are awesome. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to stay awesome. Mm-hmm. I failed in the past with that multiple times. The biggest growth I've gone through as a coach in the last multiple years is now, I don't know how to articulate it correctly, but I think you know it. I think you've probably
Yeah.
seen it with me over the years.
Well, and it's hard too because you don't want people. My biggest thing in giving tough love is like, well, I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. I know what that feels like, and that doesn't feel good. But then you have to think like, well, that made me better too.
Yeah, but it's like if they were sick and we had a medicine and it was terrible tasting, it was horrible, they hated the experience, but it was going to cure the ailment. Do you not give it to them because of the momentary discomfort and allow them to live with the ailment that's going to progressively get worse? I've had to like reframe my mind on it. It's like, you know what? I recently, Parisian and I'm not going to put him on blast about this, but he tried to come down on me about when I had just got back from Thailand and I was on empty, blah, 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 blah. He was like, I want this now at this time. Like he wanted me to basically like make an adjustment for him, which with Parisian, he's been with me for like 11 years. I'll go to war for that man. Even if I think he is objectively doing something terrible and wrong, I'll probably be by his side like, you're an idiot, but like I'm going to battle for you. And I believe in my heart that he would want to do the same for me. But it was so easy to rebuttal and be like, no, dude, period. I need this, that, and the other thing. I am always there for you in any way that you need me, and you know that, and I've proven that over a long period of time. You need to step up for me right now. And honestly, right away, we were great with each other within a couple hours. But it was like I was shocked because I'm like, wow, this is someone that's been by my side for the longest time. That my old mindset, I spent years only trying to build him through soft love, potential, inspiration. And I realized, like, no, if he respects and values me, then he can handle whatever is appropriate for the situation. And it was phenomenal. You know what I mean? And I'm not, but like I said, I'm not trying to put him on blast. It's, people will never see fully eye to eye. If you see fully eye to eye with everyone you are around, someone's not being authentic. Someone's not being genuine because people are different. We view the world different. And the way that we really come up with the best solutions is dialogue. Is talking together, whether it's therapy with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or whether it's, a project at work, or no matter what it is, the best thing you can do is talk honestly, objectively, and try to understand their perspective and try to find between the two of you what is the best solution that you guys can find. And that right there, that's something I said to you right before the podcast. You want to fix your relationships, you want to never view the person as the opposition. View the problem as the opposition. When Stacy and I have a problem, I am not like, why is Stacy being X? No, I try to understand where she's coming from. I try to understand why she would feel the way that she feels. And I look at like, there's a problem that is pushing us apart from each other. How do I combat that? I'm not combating her because I don't want to push her away. I want to bring her to me.
That's exactly what like Ty and I's therapist has said too. Just like maybe, when you get in a fight and then like you disengage, like don't necessarily look at that person and be like, they're making me mad, they're doing this, they're being horrible to me, they're doing this. Be like, what is triggering me? What has happened in my life that's making me feel this way? What made me go off? Because it wasn't just him that went off. What dug deep in me and hit something hard and like wasn't going right? What did I do? So yeah, that's to like, again, a detriment. Sometimes that's what I do to myself. And I think that's what's helped me. Yeah.
And really what you're seeking is the happiness again. You want the love again. You want to pull that person back to where it was before the conflict. So you have to view it through that lens. You have to see the conflict as the issue, as the problem. How do we remedy this so we get back to what we cherish? Imagine if that was the standard in relationships. Whenever there's a major problem, you don't hate them. You are not clearly identifying that they are not the problem. It's the problem that you want to solve. And you know what? Let's say you come down to the solution that, no, it's them as a human being that they are a horribly toxic, evil person. Maybe, let's say that was the objective truth. Then you know what you need to do. It will make your choice to leave the situation very simple. But you have to seek that clarity. That's huge.
Yeah, like even when, like we broke up that one time when I said I gained confidence, I really healed and got better because I looked at me and said, I am doing this to myself and no one else is. No one wants me to. Like, I need to do my own thing. So.
Be someone that makes you happy, and then you can be with someone that makes you happy. That's how that should work. If you could put those two pieces together, that's what people are seeking. So Zoe, we're almost at an hour and a half. It's been an absolutely incredible dialogue. Just anything else you'd like to say at this moment in time? Anything you'd like to say to your family, to your supporters, to your friends, to maybe people in this environment that look up to you, that just anything you'd like to capture in this moment in time, we'll put it on the podcast, and then, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I do want to say thank you to all my supporters. I come from Coldwater, Michigan. It's like a little small town right on the border of Indiana. Dan Severin's from there, actually. I knew him growing up, so it was so funny when I came to like the MMA scene. Everyone's like, "You know Dan Severin?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like my next door neighbor. I went to school with his son. Anyway, I just want to thank them because they are seriously so supportive. Like it's awesome to me, that I've gone, all around Michigan and I still have so many roots there. So I just want to thank them, and I want to thank, my family for pushing me and believing in me. That it's made this process in this year, I think, sped up and easier because they truly believe in me too. So thanking them, and then just to everyone, in the gym, and like gyms surrounding, like you can do probably anything like you want to do, really. Like I just keep doing the best you can, keep showing up. My goal was to be the best college wrestler that I could be, and I think that I was pretty dang close to that. I made out of it what I could. And just that, everyone's a normal person. Like they go through the same struggle and not perfect. Like I beat myself up all the time for wrong things I do, like every day. So, yeah, it's just doing the best you can, really. It's that simple.
I love it. I knew this podcast was going to be fire. I knew it. So we'll end on that. I mean, it was very beautiful. And I love that you just said, like, I do stuff wrong every day. But the reason she knows it's wrong is because of who she is. So if you listen to that inner voice and you know who you are deep down, those wrongs have to be there. Because let's say you were doing the wrong thing and it wasn't affecting you at all. Then that means an even darker thought. That's kind of who you are. If you're going around hurting people, being terrible, lying, cheating, stealing, doing horrible things, and it wasn't eating your conscience apart, that means it's who you are. Mm-hmm. So if anything, if you're making mistakes and you have all these things, that means you have to change your habits. That means you have to control your self-discipline. That means you need to regulate your emotions better. But that doesn't mean you're a bad person. Mm-hmm. You gotta know that.
Yeah, I still struggle with that concept too, because as soon as I do something bad, like I still get defensive and triggered, and I'm like, oh, it must be me.
No, sorry to let you know, Zoe, that's not you. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have the negative emotions about those experiences. You can only have them like that because you know that it's not who you're meant to be. That's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast today. I've had so much support on this podcast. Vet Life, I want to shout you guys out one more time. Truly just incredible. I mean, the fact that we've done almost 150 episodes together, I can't wait to see what this year has in store. And I really like that these are progressive dialogues. Like one day, we're going to be able to watch your first ever podcast with me, and then your second, and then your third. Like, think about how cool of a documentary that is, where you will be able to watch the evolution of Zoe Nowicki over time. Your mind, your presence, your everything will be captured. I'm really excited about that. So, anyway, it was wonderful sitting and talking with you today, and we'll wrap this episode up.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, James.